Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our exclusive Global Leading Voices webinar campaign. We are delighted to have you join us here today. Please be informed that if you have any questions during the presentation, you may type them into the question box in your control panel. The presenter will answer your questions at the end of the presentation accordingly. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to our presenter, who will begin shortly.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kit. May I extend a very warm welcome to everyone in this webinar. As I said, I'm Kit. I am an energy and environmental consultant. I also provide training in ISO 50001 and 14001. I also sit on the committee that writes the standards. Today, we will be exploring the key things that people tend to not appreciate that are included in standard management system standards like ISO 50001. We'll be looking at how you could be better at implementing them and therefore creating benefits from your ISO 50001 rather than being a cost. If we look at the current status of energy management, assuming that the red square is the total energy consumption globally, we know from data over the last 10 years or so that this consumption is growing approximately 2.6% a year. Now, based on the total available techniques and know-how that we have today, we should be using 73% less consumption. Now, if we could realize this 73% reduction, we only need to decarbonize 27% of our remaining energy consumption. That would be through renewable energy or carbon capture. We also know on a conservative basis, approximately 25 to 30% of the energy consumption can be saved with no cost or relatively low cost. However, on a real-term reduction basis, we are achieving approximately 1% year on year. Now, that is a very interesting phenomenon. Why are organizations not reducing energy? This is a survey done at Harvard Business Review. There are similar surveys carried out in The Economist, the Financial Times, and the Energy Managers Association. Now, what's interesting here, I've highlighted 7 top 10 reasons quoted by senior managers. It represents 60% of their time that companies are not doing energy reduction. They are due to things like failure to assess the side effects or consequence of not saving energy, uncertain over the feasibility of energy projects, leadership attitudes, avoiding new costs. Now, these are issues that are within the remit, the control, and the influence of senior managers, even though they quote these are the reasons they're not doing energy savings. Now, when we ask senior management what are the activities that would help them disarm these barriers and accelerate energy reduction, now what's interesting is that they've said educating top managers, making energy data and decision aids visual, easy to understand, use balanced case studies, implementing a management system, carrying out an energy audit. Now, these are the activities that can be achieved through in-house activities in a concerted manner. In fact, they are activities that are embedded in the implementation of ISO 50001. So if we can have a closer look at what is a management system, I've taken this quote from Robert Kaplan and David Norton. A management system is an integrated set of processes and tools that a company uses to develop its strategy, translate it into operational actions, and monitor and improve the effectiveness of both. Now, these are the quotation I've taken from Robert Kaplan and David Norton, and as many of you would also realize that pick out any ISO management system, the definition of management system would be very, very closely aligned. Now, there are many names available for management systems. If you look at any of the management textbooks or management systems textbook or leadership textbook, sometimes it is known as operating system, business excellence models, operational effectiveness. So while the description of a management system is generic and many people can regurgitate this definition, many people do not understand what it is, apart from the ability to regurgitate what the standards say. However, understanding what management system is key to unlock how you tap into and how you promote and how you make energy savings a success. My way of explaining what a management system is to use the analogy of a human body. You know, in the human body, we have many systems operating at the same time. We have the skin that is the conduit for us to sense the external environment. It also acts as a regulator to regulate the internal body temperature. We have the digestive systems to help us digest and break down the food into energy elements. We've got the circulatory system that brings oxygen through our body and take out the CO2. You know, there is one bodily system that governs all this human body system, and that is the nervous system. It takes inputs from all the available body systems, it sends it up to the brain for processing and analysis and making a decision, and it takes the output and distributes it throughout all the body system. Now imagine if our body do not have this management system. In fact, you may find that your limbs are in different locations. You may find, for example, that you're hungry, but your mouth won't open. And in this situation, it is very, very difficult to implement what the body wants. Now, similarly, that is what a management system does to companies. Now, one of the key things that, as I've described using the body system, there is a need for your management system to align its strategy with its execution. And that is the first key that most people are not aware of, or frequently disconnecting the organizational purpose and the strategy with the execution. Here we are talking about the context of the organization. What are the issues that present a risk to the organization that they must address? What are the issues that presents an opportunity that make the organizations a success? What are the must-dos? What are the aspirations? What are the strengths and the weaknesses that the company have to overcome or build competence around? Now, why they're important? They become your linchpin, your key to actually drive the entire organization forward. They are your key to communicate your aspiration, your purpose, your vision, your mission statements. They are also your key to tie in projects and improvements throughout the whole organization. So from the perspective of energy management system, how does energy consumption tie in with the context? Because once we've got that sorted, we can then define the high-level policy, the must-dos to address in order to achieve success by the company, the principles that guide day-to-day decision-making in the organization. Then we put in place the objectives and action plan, the high-level plan as defined by the high-level policy that is aligned with the context of the organization and what the aspiration of the company is trying to achieve. They need to be supported by lower-level action plans that are detailed and achievable. And then the indicators used to track the progress and the complementary or competing objectives needs to be resolved. Now, once we've done this, the next thing we need to do is to look at stakeholders. We need to align the stakeholders. Again, is another frequent mistake. People put the objectives, they put the resources, the channel, the performance indicator, and then they find whatever they've done do not meet the requirement of the stakeholders. All the efforts are wasted, which is why aligning stakeholders is very important right at the very, very beginning. Who are the stakeholders? Why do they want to come along with your journey? Why do they want to be saving energy? What are their roles? What are their gains? What are their needs? And what capabilities do you need them? Now, once you've identified your objectives and the stakeholders, you are in a position to define what resources you need, what capabilities you need, and what channels you're going to use to engage the stakeholders. Finally, what are the performance indicators that you need to tell that you are delivering your plan as per what you intended, or you need to adjust your course to correct and meet the requirement. You need to make sure that you have indicators that are repeatable, that are accurate. And then you also will need to ensure that your initiatives are really delivering the results that you plan to do. So that is the key important thing right at the beginning, aligning your strategy and its execution. Then companies must become aware of energy savings and wanting to take action on it. Now, this is the global energy consumption in buildings, transport, and processes. Now, it is important and interesting to note that every single sector is consuming significantly more to provide the same level of output, be it in buildings or processes and transport. So using simple tools like energy benchmarking help to visually assess at a high level where are the gap or what is the energy gap available for the company and how fast do they want to close the gap. When it comes to smoking out the opportunities for improvement, ISO 50001 uses the concept of energy use, energy consumption, and efficiency. Now, what's interesting is when people come to think about energy saving opportunities, they go straight to think about applying energy efficiency to the boilers, to the chillers, to the compressors, or the ventilation system. However, the boilers do not consume energy. Your buildings, your processes, your people do. So let me explain this by using a very simple input and output diagram. If you are in a manufacturing process, you take in the raw input material, goes through your process to make a product. And you may also have some waste generated along the way. If you are a service company, you might have an input of customer coming in. It goes through the sales process, and then come out with happy customers, perhaps with additional products in the plastic bag, or a service that has been rendered, or both. Now, these are the energy users. They consume energy. Now, in order for them to consume energy, it was distributed from the energy system. Now, no energy system is perfect. Some will be lost. Now, this is where your boiler plant generates energy. And for example, a boiler plant is 80% efficient, so you will always have 20% energy losses from your boiler plant, and that is the amount of energy you need to purchase. So if you look at opportunities for improvement from the energy use perspective, we'll be talking about, do I need every processes? Does it need to be idle? Am I operating the process efficiently? Is the specification overly stringent? Am I over-processing? Is the maintenance carried out correctly? Are the processes using energy effectively and efficiently? In terms of the waste management, how can I reduce waste or pollution? How can I minimize over-processing? Is the disposal route the most efficient one? Does it need to be idle and the operational and maintenance consideration? Now, the moment you move away from the energy use, the opportunities in the distribution becomes, am I operating and maintaining the distribution appropriately? How can I reduce the losses? In the generation plant, am I operating and maintaining the plants appropriately? Am I generating it at the most efficient possible point? How can I reduce the losses? Now, as you can see, if we actually make the distinction, we can save energy from energy use, energy consumption, and efficiency. We have a lot of opportunities, especially when we embed 50001 into your business processes. Then we need to find ways to make energy consumption and energy inefficiencies visible. Energy efficiency, energy consumption opportunities appear in many ways and throughout the life cycle of your manufacturing plant or the life cycle of your building. ISO 50001 make use of concepts like energy profiles, energy baselines, energy performance indicators, and energy reviews to help you smoke out these opportunities, make it visible for the management and the organization and the employees to do something about it. Once you have a set of projects that you like to execute, it is also important to plan your program to maximize energy savings and not cost, because it is very easy to maximize project cost. And sometimes maximizing project costs will also stop you from energy savings in the future. Now, one recent example that I had was a company installed a CHP plant straight away, thinking that that's the easiest thing to do before energy savings, which is fine. They've implemented the CHP plant, but after they do that, they find they cannot implement any energy savings project because any energy savings project implemented will mean that the CHP plant no longer runs efficiently and optimally. So how do we stack projects to maximize energy savings? First, you need to think about reducing and removing energy use, then reducing consumption, stop and reducing things from being consumed without good reason. Then we need to think about reusing energy in situ. Can we recover and use it in the same equipment? Then it's about recycling. Can we recover the energy and use it elsewhere? For example, I'm recovering heat from the condensate and sending it to boiler makeup. It's two different locations. We can also think about resource efficiency. Can I use different materials or use them more efficiently? Lastly, it's about, can we manufacture the same product or provide the same service using completely different routes? Could we change the business model to make energy efficiency happen? Now, this is also where renewable energies and CHP plants come in play. Now, once you've grappled with all the technical opportunities available to help you save energy, and you've created this fantastic action plan, then we need to talk about communication. We need to talk about making your energy messages simple and interesting. The thing about organizations is that unless you are an energy company, kilowatt hours and kilowatts doesn't mean anything. In fact, most people will struggle with the amount of jargons and lingo that the energy savings and energy management industry use. So we kind of need to make our messages simple using the organization's own jargons because everyone understands them, and also make it interesting. If it doesn't, this is what I call the chicken and the duck talk, which is why you see a duck and a chicken, because you'll be quacking along the way and your colleagues will be cockle-doodle-doodling. Nobody understands each other and nothing gets done. Now, once you are able to make the messages simple, understandable, and interesting, then it is about communicate, and communicate some more. Because 70% of the success in making energy savings happen has to do with people in the company wanting to make it happen. And companies that are successful in reducing energy consumption communicate at a minimum 10 times more often than companies that aren't successful. In fact, when you speak to these companies that are successful, they will tell you they want to communicate even more in the future. So if we recap the first 7 things that we talk about aligning your strategy with your execution. We talk about making energy consumption visible. We talk about identifying the opportunity, the gap for improvement. We've talked about using the various tools in ISO 50001 through the profiles, the baselines, the performance indicators, and energy reviews to smoke out the opportunities. We've planned them in a good way. Now, the next thing about implementation is we need to align the support processes to ensure smooth implementation. If you want to implement a project, for example, in a manufacturing plant or in a business, it doesn't happen overnight. It needs to go through various parts of the organization. So take an example, a production plant. The production machines are making products out every minute. The quality assurance team might be sampling in an hour. The people that schedule what goes into the plant manufacturing might happen on a daily basis. Your plant maintenance on a weekly basis. Your HR might churn things through on a monthly basis. Your operational planning every quarterly. Your projects are planned perhaps twice a year, and your strategy for the plant is reviewed every year. So in order to get a project implemented, you need to be able to align all the various bits and pieces in the organization so that everything happens when you need it to happen. Again, this is one of the key things that most people forget when they come into implementing energy management and also implementing management system. One of the most frequent delay is not because you are physically not ready to deliver the project, but somebody else is not. So one of the key things to think about as well, aligning the various processes in the organization. Now, the second thing we need to think about is to plan the implementation. Again, this is another one of the frequent things that companies don't get right. In fact, people normally think, I've got this opportunity, I've signed and approved to go, it happens overnight by magic. No. Opportunities don't get implemented by taking out your wand and flicking the wand abracadabra and it appears. There are many, many different stages involved. So when you're talking about the opportunities you've identified in the energy review, that might be in the energy assessment and the audit stage. You might need to develop and put more meat into the idea, and you go through the concept and the development phase. You might need to get further quotations from the suppliers, from the installers. For a more complex project, you might need detailed design. You might have someone doing the detailed design, doing all the system integration for you. You might also want to think about how are you going to construct this project. If it's a retrofit project, what are the bits that you need to take out? What are the bits that you're going to put in and how you're going to do that? We also have the testing in phases and commissioning phases. How do we make sure that everything is being commissioned appropriately? It's delivering the energy savings that you need. Now that's not the end, because once you've installed this new project or this new equipment or retrofit the equipment, what are the operational requirements? What are the maintenance requirements? They need to be captured. They need to be embedded in the procedures and your maintenance steps, for example. So these needs to be planned and considered, and it doesn't appear by itself overnight. Now, lastly, it is about celebrating your successes. Now, through a lot of social science studies, there are increasing number of evidence to show the more you celebrate every single success, the more people become motivated. The attitude created encourages future success. It does so by encouraging people to not think about just the problem, but also think about the solution. It promotes people to work together to find common solutions rather than problems and no. This is a research done by a friend of mine, and what it actually shows is the annual savings on a compound basis versus the number of years. Now, what we can see is that there are a number of companies that can improve its energy performance over many, many years. In this chart, they're all UK companies. There we can see companies making improvement over 15 years and in fact some over 20 years. Now the reason why we can continue to achieve savings over so many years, I'll bring you back to the very first slides we talk about, the huge amount of energy savings opportunities that are available based on what we know. So as a summary, these are the key things that we absolutely need to become good at implementing when we are talking about doing ISO 50001. We need to be able to align the strategy with the execution. We need to be aware of what are the energy savings potential and wanting to take action about it. We need to be able to differentiate the concept of energy use, consumption, and efficiency and embed that into our business processes. We need to make energy consumption and inefficiencies visible, and there are many tools in ISO 50001 to do that. We need to plan to maximize energy savings, and we need to be able to make our messages simple, interesting, and constantly communicate that to people. Then in terms of delivery, we need to align our support processes so that everyone in the company, the different departments, are aligned and are working together to deliver those projects and to turn through the various stages of the implementation projects. Lastly, it's about celebrating our successes and continually improve from it. Now, all we've talked about are elements that feature in ISO 50001. Now, some are more prominent and some are less so. In fact, some will become even more prominent and take a central role in the high-level structure standards that is coming out soon. So with that, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure sharing 10 of the insights with you on how companies tend to put aside these minute issues around 50001 implementation and how we can actually do much better in implementing 50001 and create benefits and profit from it. And I'll hand you over to the organizer on the next slide.
Thank you, Kit, for this great presentation. Before we proceed with the question and answer session, I would like to inform you that PCB provides training and certification services for ISO 15001, Introduction, Foundation, Lead Implementer, and Lead Auditor. ISO 50001 helps you and the organization in saving money as well as conserving resources and tackling climate change. For more information, please visit our website, pcb.com/training. Now, I would like to proceed by answering some of the questions asked by the audience. The first question is, what are the similarities and differences between ISO 50001 and 14001?
Yeah, this is a question I get asked very, very frequently. And the key difference between 14,000 and 50,001 is that 50,001 is about managing energy. 14,001 is about managing environmental impact. Now, the approach, apart from the discipline that is quite different, the approach is also very different. For 50,001, it is about using data to analyze what is the performance and then designing a path forward. Whereas in the environmental management, it is about using data, but a lot of the time it is actually a retrospective management process, i.e., something has to happen, we try to prevent, and we try to stop. Now, the second difference that I normally say to people is that ISO 14001 talks about environmental aspects, which there are many. Energy is one of them, but you do not talk about energy as a kilowatt hour. You talk about energy as CO2 emissions, which is after you've consumed the energy. Whereas energy management is about how do you actively manage and reduce the consumption before it even becomes CO2 emissions. So that's another approach. We can look at the differences. But then, of course, 50,001 specific for energy, ISO 14001, for me, it's a little bit more generic because it covers the atmospheric emissions, liquid effluent, groundwater, waste, dust emission. So 14,001 has to be a little bit more generic in terms of the requirements, whereas 50,001 could be a little bit more specific because we're talking only about one aspect. Now, what I also find quite frequent is that companies actually use 50,001 to manage the energy and the carbon dioxide emission, and let 14,001 deals with the rest. Now, that combination is also quite frequently found when I go visit people.
Thank you. The other question is, are there any software tools that you would suggest for applying ISO 50001?
There are quite a lot of templates available in the market. As a lead auditor myself, I prefer to see companies understanding the requirements rather than filling in templates and software tools. The challenge will come is when the high-level structure version of 50,001 coming probably next year or in 2019, where there is a requirement for you to demonstrate how you've integrated energy management into your business processes. Now, this is where no software tool available will be able to demonstrate your processes. So I prefer companies and organizations to understand what is the requirement, because if you really understand it and implement it, the amount of documentation and the tools available can be very, very simple. So for example, I've gone to a business where their ISO 50001 manual is only 2 A4 pages. Now, they could do this because they fully understand what is the requirement, and they have integrated these requirements into the various aspects of their business and their procedures and their processes. And therefore, the energy management manual bit, it becomes very, very thin. It becomes just a map. And no software template could actually help people do that.
Thank you, Kit. Another question is, what is the role of energy audit in energy management policy of a company?
Yep, what I tend to say is an energy audit is a tool companies use to identify cost-effective opportunities for improvement. In ISO 50001, the word energy audit doesn't exist. The concept of energy review is used. Now, for me, the difference between an energy audit and an energy review is that an energy review is a live document. It contains the energy profile, the energy baseline information, and the company is supposed to manage and continually update this energy review document. Whereas an energy audit is a fixed point in time opportunity list. So I frequently find a lot of companies use a detailed energy audit to actually form the very first draft of energy review and use that to identify what are the projects they want to take forward, to build that into their objectives, their target, and also help them inform what are the higher level policies and objectives and targets to aim for.
Thank you, Kit. Another question that we have is, what are some potential challenges that the organization can face while implementing ISO 50001?
Yeah, for me, the most frequent issue that I see is, number one, the disconnect between the company's strategy, the purpose, and what the middle managers want to do, which is to implement a management system. And when this disconnect occur, you will find companies or management struggling to promote opportunities for improvement and get senior management to approve or buy into projects. They will find middle management designing and crafting a good energy policy and objectives and targets and project plans that are frequently changed by senior management in last minute because of the disconnect. There are also a lot of issues where senior management, because they've not bought into the energy management route, they actually query what is the value, and therefore making energy management very, very complex and difficult. The second thing that I find quite frequently, especially in Europe and in America, is that the companies are very good in aligning stakeholder requirements, the softer side, the HR side, but they are not very good in the technical capability of development. In fact, a lot of people think implementing ISO 50001 only need a management system training. It don't need the technical training. However, if you don't have the technical capability to ask the right questions to the suppliers, then how do you know that the supplier is giving you the appropriate information? Or how do you make a judgment that the opportunities is relevant to your company? So I frequently say the second challenge is a mix of managerial and technical skills is absolutely required, and different companies draw that balance slightly differently. So that is the second challenge quite frequently being faced. In fact, those are the two key ones that I see very routinely.
Thank you, Kit. Another question that we have is, what are some initial steps that companies can take to prepare for adopting ISO 50001?
Sure. For me, I have not seen a single company that have not had an experience improving its energy performance. So there are multiple approaches, and the one that I like to tell people is to grab a copy of ISO 50001 or go through an introductory training to understand the requirements. and then do a gap analysis to find out what is it that you already have and what is it that you need to do in order to close those gaps. Then we can work from there. In fact, what you'll find is that because different companies already do different things, and in fact, quite a lot of companies already have, for example, 9001 or 14001 or the other management standards, system standards, you will find a lot of commonality that you already have. So understanding what are the requirements and what are the gaps you need to close is absolutely essential to implement the 50001. You might find that you need to spend a lot of time, for example, looking how do you measure energy performance, how do you meter the readings because you haven't got any reliable meters. Or perhaps you find that you already have a lot of meters, so what you need to do is to go do an energy review to identify the opportunities. You could also do 50001 from the start by gaining the management commitment, go through the policy setting, then do the review. So there's actually no one way. All the ways that I've described will work as long as you do everything and close the gap.
Thank you, Kit. Another question that we have is, does using renewable sources of energy help in energy management? How relevant is this aspect with respect to ISO 50001?
Yep, this is a very, very common question, and the short answer is that using renewable energy doesn't help with improving your energy performance as defined by ISO 50001. Because ISO 50001's energy performance is about reducing use, reducing consumption, and improving efficiency. Renewable energy doesn't reduce your use, doesn't reduce your consumption, or improve the efficiency of the equipment that you have. What it does is to reduce the carbon dioxide impact of your energy use. So renewable energy do have a large role to play in the overall climate change and CO2 reduction, but strictly from energy performance improvement perspective, it doesn't come in play.
Thank you, Kit. Because of time limitation, we will only be answering one more question, and the rest of the questions will be answered by Kit via email. So the last question for today is there any specific method which is easy to understand and use for calculating energy baseline?
Yes, there is. I have a short video explanation on how you do an energy baseline on my YouTube page. And I think once you've looked through it, it will be much, much easier because it's very difficult to describe energy baseline without a visual explanation. I can provide the link later after this if you like.
Okay. So thank you once again for this presentation, Kit. It was an honor having you as a presenter. I would also like to thank all the attendees for joining us today. Please be reminded that this webinar will be recorded and posted in our YouTube channel and also in our SlideShare accounts. We hope you enjoyed our webinar and we wish you a wonderful day.